An ATI GPU from 2009 with 1 gigabyte of memory. Kinda a weird one I'm looking at today. The ATI HD 5770. I got this for my friend for his birthday when he was first getting into PC gaming back in 2016 for I think $40. Nowadays that would be way overpriced for what it is, but at the time it still had driver updates and it was alright. He quickly upgraded though to have a much better GPU situation, and so he could play more modern games. This, I believe, was the last generation of GPUs branded under the ATI brand instead of AMD, because AMD had already bought ATI, but they took a few years to change the naming scheme. But it is still a Radeon, but it's called an ATI Radeon HD 5770. Released in October of 2009 for $160. Good mid-range GPU at the time. Built on the 40 nanometer process with 10 compute units, and I was running it at 900 megahertz using the TerraScale 2 architecture, so before GCN and anything to follow. It has 1 gigabyte of GDDR5 on a 128-bit bus, around 77 gigabytes per second, and I overclocked the memory to 1300 megahertz. It has one 6-pin PCIe power and a TDP of 108 watts. I used modded drivers from 2022 to give it the best chance. This is actually in my main computer with a Ryzen 5700X3D, 32 gigabytes of DDR4, 3600 CL16, because I just wanted to see what the GPU can do. This GPU is everything surprising and disappointing wrapped up in one. There were so many things that just did not work. Even things that I expected to work, like Battlefront 2 didn't work at all, and Need for Speed Heat didn't work, and Forza Horizon 4 did not work, as well as Fortnite, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Marvel Rivals. So we're going to have very little comparison to any other tests I've done. But those were CPU tests, not GPU, so shouldn't matter. To start off with, let's look at the not so great results. The fact that it ran at all is surprising. In Jedi Fallen Order, released in 2019, I had to set it to the lowest settings at 720p. Now, the lowest settings in Jedi Fallen Order are medium, but you can't put them lower than that. I got an average of 31 FPS with a low of 13. Not terrible sounding, but it was very stuttery because of VRAM. And because of the VRAM, most of the textures just never loaded, so the game looked terrible. I could deal with a low resolution and stuff, but nothing was loading fully, and you would get huge stutters when you're running out of VRAM. As to be expected, though. That's a 10-year-old GPU by the time this game came out, and it wasn't even necessarily the most powerful thing at the time anyway. I expected a little more of this one. Rise of the Tomb Raider, on lowest settings at 720p, I got an average of 36 and a 1% low of 20. That's not too bad. And again, this one actually probably is playable, but it looks so bad. Everything's so muddy. It just doesn't look great. Honestly, I don't even know. Maybe the Xbox 360 version would be even better than this. At least more polished. While going through some of the games I could think to get running on it, it seems like 2015 is the year. Games before 2015 might be okay. Things after 2015, I'm gonna have a pretty bad time with it. So this is where the disappointment is. All these games didn't work or looked terrible and didn't run well either. But if we go to some things that it was more designed to do, we'll start off with Need for Speed Rivals. You can get rid of the 30 FPS cap, but it didn't seem to really work for this GPU. I couldn't get 60 FPS no matter what I tried. But at 900p medium settings, an average of 30 FPS, and a 1% low of 22, this one actually felt great. It's kind of just like the last gen console version of it, so the PS3 and Xbox 360 version of this game. It looked fine and it ran pretty good too. Now, I hate 30 FPS, but, sacrifices on this old of a GPU makes sense. If we go on to Shadow of Mordor, I set to 720p low settings. I got an average of 59 FPS and a 1% low of 44. This is totally fine for this game, and it actually looks okay. Obviously, the game can look significantly better, but again, this is a PS3, Xbox 360 game, and a PS4 and Xbox One game. But this looked and ran fine. I could enjoy the game like this. If we go on to stuff that's right up its alley, stuff it runs beautifully and gives you a great feeling, we head on over to 2013's Tomb Raider, the reboot series. I set it to normal settings and 900p and got 76 FPS and a 1% low of 60. If I change it to 1080p, it actually gets 56 FPS and 45 as a 1% low. So I'd actually prefer this one at full HD. And normal's kind of like the medium settings. It's above the low settings, but it's not high, obviously. But this looked and ran great. I was having a good time kind of getting lost into the gameplay. If we go to 2013's BioShock Infinite, beloved by many, I set it to 900p with medium settings and got a 57 FPS average and a 52 1% low. That is quite good. I was enjoying this game and it looks great, and I don't even know if it uses all 1 GB of the VRAM. Now to one of our oldest games here is 2012's Dishonored 1. Such a cool concept of a game. And this one ran fantastic. 1080p max settings. I was getting 75 FPS as a average and a 30 FPS 1% low. Dishonored really doesn't have that many settings to change, but it just defaulted to the highest and it did 1080p and it worked and ran great. That's why I'm conflicted about this card, because in its era, it's excellent, but it kind of just hit a brick wall in 2015, 2016. Obviously, indie games and low power games can work fine on it, but it is limited to very old APIs, and it seems to run best with DirectX 9. I don't even think DirectX 11 ran too great. There was plenty of games that did use DirectX 11, but it seems like it's more ideal for the older games, which makes sense. It came out in 2009, and I would argue this actually had a pretty good lifespan for how cheap it was at the time, and just the way PC hardware was advancing at the time. PC hardware was jumping very quickly back then. So this is a fun little GPU that's appropriate for 2009 and early 2010s. It runs the games great. Just play the games it's designed for and you'll have a great time. I'm thinking of putting some of these older computer parts together and seeing how they work together as a package. But that'll be for something else. That'll be later. Thank you for watching this look back at the HD 5770. Take care.